Those of you who are into astral projection, you'll enjoy this next little part here. On the 83rd contact on Saturday, September 10th in 77, it was explained to Billy that the Pleiadians were having contacts with a man who they just called Mr. G, and he was performing some important work for them, and they hadn't heard from him in several weeks, and there seemed to be a problem, and Semjase just asked casually if Billy could look into it, that she felt somehow he was being influenced by some other outside energy force, and didn't know what really had happened to Mr. G. So Billy waits till night about 2 in the morning, and he astrally projects his thoughts to Mr. G. And his thoughts approach Mr. G. He sees him lying in his bed sleeping at night, and he notices that there's a field of energy, not a blue one but a violet one, around Mr. G. And he says, well, I have to get through this band of energy around him so I can get into his aura to actually find the thoughts that his subconscious are creating and to find out what's been going on with Mr. G. So he tries to move through this violet energy force that is surrounding Mr. G, and he is repelled immediately with this tremendously strong force. He finds himself knocked unconscious. Immediately he's back into his bed, and as soon as his consciousness returns, he notices that some invading energy has pushed right inside of his material body in his chest and threatens to kill him. That's what he said. He says he's losing his breath, and this force was so powerful he suddenly was kind of fearful for his life. With his strongest blockade abilities, he fought and resisted this force, and for 15 minutes he had to fight it tremendously to push it out of his body. Then the force left. Well, he later, when he had a contact with Semjase, explained this to her, and she was very surprised that Billy had actually been attacked by this force. They had no idea. And she says, well, don't concern yourself with it any longer. I certainly wouldn't want you to get hurt. And she would look into it and get back to him, which she does. Well, it turns out that she herself tries to get in through this violet energy block that's surrounding Mr. G, and can't get through herself, and she's hit full force with it, and is knocked back, knocked unconscious. Her sister Pleia, who is standing by with some sort of device on board the ship to protect her, intercedes with this device and separates the energy and pushes it out of the ship and saves her. But she says, Billy, this force was so strong that I couldn't believe that you actually survived it. And Billy said, well, what he had done was a trick that was taught to him years ago when he was learning these techniques in India, whereby that you leave traces of yourself. When you astral project, you don't allow the energy to follow you back to where you originated from. Instead, he left traces of his feelings in New Delhi and in Rangoon. So it broke up the ability of this energy to follow him back, and he did not receive a full impact then of this energy, lest he probably would be dead. Instead, he just got a minor part of the energy that hit Semjase. Pataz called in, looks into the situation, and finds out that indeed Mr. G is being surrounded by a heavy form of energy, and he explains what it is. He says on the planet Earth there are literally billions of people who follow and align themselves with certain religious thinking. In other words, their thoughts all form a pretty much the same idea. He says that ETs who want to take advantage of this, what they can do is they can focus in on these common thoughts of billions of people. They can then concentrate that energy, because all that energy is concentrated on one idea. It's all energy. In this case, it was religious energy, where billions of people are concentrating on the idea of Jesus and Christianity. That energy then was taken and redirected by these other ETs and was used to create this energy block around Mr. G. So what Billy was running up against was actually the concentrated force of thought of billions of people being used for rather wicked devices. Mr. G then was feeling somehow that he was in touch with a beautiful higher spiritual life force, which he wasn't. He was merely being manipulated by some other wicked intelligence. So Ptah was explaining this to Billy and explaining under no circumstances should Billy make any attempt to contact Mr. G or let him know at all that he had tried to interfere. They didn't want to take the chance of whatever was causing this energy force getting back to Billy and getting a hold of him or any of the members of the group. Okay, we're up to the 88th contact. It's Monday, October 17th, 1977. This contact, like many that will come after it, start becoming more and more involved just with the lives of the group members. Billy's making a really difficult effort here to form this group, get the bylaws together, and get everybody living under one set of guidelines. And you have all these personalities coming together, and things are proving very difficult. Also, we see the Pleiadians getting more and more involved in the personalities and the thought processes of all of the members, starting to offer opinions and so forth about what Billy should do. Ptah is asked about protecting Billy from the these energy forces that are surrounding Mr. G, this violet-colored energy thing that's very powerful. As it turned out, was she didn't have too many suggestions, but had some plans for a device that could be built which would kind of diffuse those energies. And Quetzal built a device like that and installed it in the telemeter device that's floating over Billy's house, and informed him that no longer should he really have to worry about the problems from those energies. If they should attack Billy, the telemeter device then would somehow protect him. As just an aside here, if you happen to read Perry Rodin books, the science fiction paperbacks from Europe, Billy had asked if there was any connection between the author and if he'd had any contacts. And he was kind of surprised to find out, yes, that the man who writes the Perry Rodin science fiction books in Europe was quite often inspired by extraterrestrials, although he himself was not aware of it. Well, not too long after that, a rather unusual thing happened at the house. Billy was walking Claire out one night to leave, and they heard a strange sound by the house, and kind of spooked Claire, and she hopped in her car and took off. Billy, after Claire left, Billy went in the house and got his flashlight, his tape recorder, and actually got his gun. He was getting pretty spooked by all this talk about security and people trying to take his life and so forth, so he was kind of on his toes. Well, he walks out in front of the house, and he's listening very carefully for the noise. And he puts the tape recorder on a fence post, and he's listening. He just stands there and listens, and he hears this sound, Merg, and he doesn't know quite what to make of it, Merg. And suddenly he sees somebody walking slowly towards him, and he can barely see in the dark. And it's the shape of a woman, and he looks closely and sees it has very long fingers. Right away he can tell this is not a normal human being. This deals somehow with some sort of extraterrestrial. Well, as the being gets a little bit closer, Billy not only notices it has long fingers, but has an unusual looking head and face, which kind of look like an aquarium sort of person, like a water woman or some kind, almost like a fish sort of head. Well, Billy's a little cautious and doesn't know what's going on, and so he just reaches down and cocks his gun. And just as he does that, this being just disappears immediately. So he's telling Semjase and Quetzal about this, wanting to know if they have any idea what's going on. So he explains all about what happened and how he pulled his gun, and he may have acted too quickly. And that after he thought about it, and he listened to the tape recording, because on the tape recording was the sound this creature was making, which was Merg, Merg. Billy ascertained, because of his large knowledge of symbol language and sounds, that what this being was saying probably was the word peace, and that he probably overreacted because he was so sensitive about someone threatening his life, that he probably ran off a very peaceful being here, and he was feeling kind of bad about it. Well, it didn't take too long for Ptah to find out, yes, indeed, that was true, that whatever this being was trying to come peacefully, and they suggested in case they returned that Billy be very peaceful, which he said, of course, that he would. It turned out these beings were called Cygnians, Cygnians. They were from a very far away race, and apparently what had happened is their ship, when coming to Earth, their drive system had gone out, and that for 2 years they had floated rather aimlessly in space and made it to Earth. And when they came into Earth, apparently the telemeter devices didn't pick up the ships coming in by some freak accident of radiation of some type. And their ship had landed. They still had some power sources, apparently, because they were able to screen the ship, and the Pleiadians were not able to find them. So apparently one of the Signians, they were trying to find someone to contact on the planet to help them out because their drive system was damaged. Ptah explained that on the Signian world, that these beings were more animalistic than they were human, and they still live by the herd principle, like you would have reindeer or buffalo, where they have the leader of the herd is the strongest and so forth. Well, this was still happening on their planet, and because of this, this herd mentality, which had slowly evolved on their world to more of a wisdom system, they were used to looking to the person with the strongest vibrations and strongest mental abilities to be the leader. And this had attracted them to Billy. And this is why they had come to Billy. So Billy started to feel kind of foolish that he had run someone off and scared someone off, someone who had actually come and help. Well, it took them just a little while to find the Signians, and Ptah contacted their home planet back home and to see what they could do about repairing their busted engine. Turns out that the ships they were flying were quite old, that had been a present to them almost 4,000 years back, that the Signians themselves were very non-mechanical and didn't have a clue on how to fix it. Not to mention the drive systems were unusual also to the Pleiadians, and they weren't sure how to repair it and didn't have any parts for it, so it was going to take some time to do that. Apparently the Signian that had come to Billy, her name was Asina. The Pleiadians eventually found the Signians in their ship and took them to their station in Switzerland and put them up there for a few months while they got their ship fixed. Well, Billy, feeling pretty poorly about the way he had treated this Signian that had come to help, says he'd sure like to meet her and express his, his sorrow at being so abrupt with her. And it was arranged that he could do that. He finally meets Asina and gets to take his picture of Asina, this rather unusual being from another world. Okay, we're up to the 92nd contact now, and this is on Wednesday, November 23rd, 1977. Billy gets on his moped and he's riding out to the spot where he's supposed to meet them, and he's really not feeling very well at all. Out of all this worry and concern about possible attacks by the Fath and other energies that may be bothering the members of the group, he's been trying very hard to protect them. There are 11 other people sleeping in the house, and what Billy's been doing is he's been staying up every night while they sleep, and he's been staying awake spiritually to protect them. He guards their subconscious on the astral plane so outside influences can't get in to bother them. And then, of course, he has to sleep for a few hours and everybody's up again for the day. Well, you combine this with the work of running the center, doing the physical work, having contacts, and doing the writing. He's wearing the center, doing the physical work, having contacts, and doing the writing. He's wearing himself out. So his nerves are becoming very frayed, and when he gets into the ship, Quetzal comments on this, and he and Semjase are telling him you've got to calm yourself down, and you're going to have to be more careful with yourself, or you're going to damage yourself very seriously and injure the mission. One of the things that they wanted to talk to him about was that there had been certain problems in the group, and it's discovered that Hans has been spreading lies about Billy and is actually being very deceitful and causing lots of problems, and this is a big shock to Billy. Fifth contact, Saturday, December 17th, 1977. Semjase is visiting Billy in the meditation room that they've built at the center, and they're both sitting there in chairs talking, and suddenly Semjase gets a little concerned. She thinks she hears somebody outside, and she says, "Billy, somebody's coming, I've got to go." And she says, "No, calm yourself, there's nobody out there." She hears it again, and she jumps up out of the chair, and she's backing up, and she trips over a little space heater there in the room and falls backward, hits herself on the wall, and disappears just as soon as she hits the wall. Well, Billy's not too surprised by this because he's used to her hitting the button on her little belt there, and she immediately pops back out and goes up into her ship. He goes outside and finds that Jacobus is out there, and apparently knowing that Semjase